that's all a build they can actually stick to the taxman. It is, of course, these two pro players because they are professional players. They do make good money. And I'm looking forward to seeing if they can make some good Age of Empires because it's time for a matchup we don't get to see too frequently these days because the Mongols are back on Dry Arabia. Can the Delhi reign supreme or is Mista going to slay the beast?
Holy smokes, is that a beautiful spot for a town center for the Mongol player. Very close to the gold, very close to the stone. In fact, so close to the stone that quite significant portion of the Ovu era is actually covered by the town center. That's something that you may want to fix in the future, but it's a very nice and compact base over here for Mista. And for a person that loves to go for early pastures with the Mongols, which is something that he commonly does... Hang on. Why is Beasty researching? Okay, I get confused for a second. I always get confused by the overlay on the left-hand side. Like,
chill.
it's fine. So, just to put this into context for everybody watching the stream, on the left side and the right side, you can see the technologies queued up by the players. So you take a glance over there and you notice, wait, that's survival techniques. But you always forget about the fact that the current technology that's being researched by the Delhi is actually highlighted on the top of the screen. That is wheelbarrow, if that is a technology that's available at the top of the screen. So I got baited a little bit there, but anyways, great start.
You just remember that Puppy Paw game from last week. It's stuck in your mind now. You're always checking for these Delhi players.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
they mis-researching?
not just Puppy Paw, Beasty. Like, when Beasty won week number 1, he played a French pass game with Delhi against the Muslim, I think, where he had a terrible Delhi game. He also forgot like half of the eco upgrades. And we had him for an interview after the finals. He came in, and before we even could ask a question, he was like, guys, let me just say that before you even ask anything, forgetting upgrade to the Delhi is not the new meta. Okay, now you can ask your questions. That's how it went.
And then Puppy Paw next week was like, nah, I disagree with that statement. Luckily, this time around, we're not going to see the forgetting the upgrade situation. Mista, however, is going to be going for that early aggression. Spearman already coming out. And an outpost opportunity could arise. The gold is on the backside, but it's wrappable. And that's exactly where his target is going to be. Like, if you can block out the gold, you block out the Delhi. It's the rule of the game.
Beasty, by the way, is using the more... I think the more optimal Delhi build, the early Musk, which means that he's going to have Piety finished by the time he reaches Feudal. Some players actually don't like to use that, but this is Beasty's build order. I think this is the most optimal Delhi Dark Age. There is Berries and the Musk. I think this gives you a very nice combination of things. The concern that you have is that you will have to react to a tower rush right now, and you see Beasty is yet to click up to Feudal Age, and we've talked about this a lot. You cut off the Delhi player from gold, you limit their chances of expanding quite heavily by just limiting access to scholars.
Yeah, because scholars fuel everything. The research, the healing, the sacred sites that you're going to capture for economical exploitation, everything comes back to these scholars. And even if you do get your Dome of Faith built, it's still 75 gold per unit. So getting blocked out of the... It's not just getting blocked off the gold. Like, you can't go, oh, thank God, I'm back on the gold. 10 people there. It's one building that takes 45 seconds to build each of those scholars.
Indeed, and...
Oh. Huh. He's going after the wood instead of the gold.
Interesting. I mean, it could make some sense. You see, the mining camp has been deleted already. This is actually concerning for Beasty. Because the thing is that...
He chose to get rid of it, though, like, which is curious to me, because he didn't even get enough gold for one scholar.
This is bad. This is bad, because the thing is that it's not just the fact that you won't be able to move out for the sacred sites or empower your production buildings even. The problem is that this will heavily delay Sanctity. And the follow-up from Mista to this one is going to be a fast castle, likely, from this Dark Age aggression. This is scary for Beasty. This is actually very scary.
Now the berry's been blocked. Like, he has at least has a lot of sheep to work with, but like, I'm actually squinting, checking the map. I'm like, am I missing a proxy gold mine? No, Beasty deleted this, and he has no backup gold at all.
And the mill is gonna be lit on fire, so sure thing you deleted the mining camp, but you will still have some bounty going for Mista here.
I'm trying to think what the goal is for him. He's barely got anyone on food either. Like, he's hard on wood, so I assume he's going to counter outposts a lot in his own base, but you've given
has to be stable range
already.
I think he's going crazy on the lumberjacking because he wants to go for like stable range and just go mass scouts to burn down the towers with, supported by archers. Something very similar to what the French player will do, because you see he's super heavy on the lumberjacking department. But the concern for him is that he has already taken a severe amount of beating because the sheer fact of Sanctity being delayed is already problematic. And indeed, there is a range in the stable.
And a wrap around. Mista is going to try to set up another outpost over this side shortly when he sees what's happening. In fact, he doesn't need the outpost. He just needs to stab them and push them back towards it. And then we'll give vision across. And there should be some arrows that's coming out soon. Mista is halfway up on the feudal now. Once that's complete, that's when you can upgrade those towers. That's when it gets really frustrating for Beasty.
Yeah, and the thing is that, as I said, obviously Mista doesn't want to finish off his opponent over here, although he's going for a stable, so we are going to see some horsemen on the battlefield. But the story is going to be about beating your opponent to Castle Age, because suddenly your unit composition is going to be superior, and you can, while you can't match up with the flood of the Delhi units, you can match up when it comes to just overall combat capabilities, because you will have higher tier units, much higher tier units, that is.
And Mista actually falls back a little bit when he sees the first archers coming out, because of course it's horsemen. They're only now being produced, they've got a long way to go. But he at least gets the read of the situation. It's going to be the horsemen plus the archers, and he does have one part of the counter already in place. But it looks like, oh, little Timmy. Timmy is going to be tucked into a permanent sleep there, and the villagers will come out to play as soon as he leaves with the
no
spearmen.
arrow slits yet.
Beasty does not skip a beat. He's not
This is actually a problem. This is actually a big problem. Mista's still yet to reach feudal age, and I guess everything cancelled, because sure enough you did some damage, but I don't think this is by far sufficient to do enough damage here to Beasty to offset the fact that the Delhi is such a juggernaut in feudal. You have the horsemen coming out, though you might actually intercept a couple of archers. Towers will go down no matter what, so I guess now Mista might need to just go full focus on army and overrun.
Yeah, honestly, you got to fall behind if you don't actually try to like overwhelm now, because he hasn't gone for his own castle up. Beastyqt is just going to try to clump. He's got plenty of berries left and plenty of sheep, and he's back on the gold again. And as he moves in to get his hands on the additional scholars, he'll trade out well, because you've gone for a melee comp. You can't even snipe the scholars out freely.
Yeah, now, it's worth noting that because you didn't have scholars out there, Sanctity was still delayed, and you see, you still only have 2 scholars, yet to add a third one to that mosque, and you don't have a scholar empowering your production buildings. That's the key thing here. So one of the reasons why Delhi is so powerful is because you have a great resource income, and you can turn that very quickly into army, because you can empower your production buildings. But that's not there right now for Beasty, so Mista has a window to just continue putting damage on, and I think his target should primarily be the gold miners once again, because you want to limit the amount of scholars available. I would also love to see some towers on the sacred sites, actually.
Yeah, that's the play I actually like more, because if you try to go for the gold now, you don't know how many he's built in there. Like, Beasty could have like over-calibrated and dragged 8 people there and got enough gold for 5 or 6 scholars, so you don't do anything. This is better. Just block out what his win condition is now, because there's no denying, no matter how Delhi's playing this, no matter how Beasty's intending this, sacred sites is a key component in 99% of Delhi strategies, and the 1% they're not a key component in are the low-level games where people forgot that sacred sites exist.
I mean, yeah, as you pointed out, the key thing is that the Delhi, they need that massive resource income, and that comes from 2 sources, sacred sites and berries. But berries are finite, sacred sites are infinite, which means that you obviously want to prioritize the sacred sites as much as possible, and the entire game plan of Mista revolved around the fact that, you know, if I deny you from being able to access scholars, I deny the research of Sanctity, and as such, I will delay you quite heavily when it comes to going for those sacred sites. The question is whether this will result in Mista having a better Castle Age timing than Beasty, because that could be the interesting aspect to look at.
Nah, he's not going to delete it again. I think the mining count's staying this time. He will be able to wall up on one of the sacred sites, so he'll get some gold trickle, but realistically, you want 2 here. We'll have to see if we can move out, because so far, Mista, I think he's only outposted 1 of these sacred sites. Yeah, that's legit.
And even one outpost isn't going to be sufficient, even with arrow slits, because you can send in 2 scholars to heal each other, and they're going to be perfectly fine.
And they're easy to torch down. Like, that's the difference between when Mongols try to play you on the sacred sites versus other civs. Other civs can fortify. Like, the English can, you know, is a perfect example of a civ that tries this. They'll plop one down, they'll get the arrow slits, but then they'll pay for fortifications. The Mongols is the only civ that doesn't have access to this.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up, indeed. But... Oh, you could potentially pick off a scholar here, but no, that's not the case. This is what you are really struggling with when you're not playing French, right? Like, this is something we talked about. This is what French can give you here. The ability to dive in, snipe a scholar easily. You just don't have that option with other civilizations. Maybe with the Roost,
like
but
yes, that's what I was about to say. French and Roost, because you can go for range blob.
it's not perfect for Roost either. Because Roost takes permanent damage on their knights, whereas the French can heal up. So like the price you pay for that scholar is much higher with the Roost.
But the difference you can do with the Roost is you don't do it for the knights, you do it for the archers. Because you blob enough archers, you can just snipe in. And that's why I highlighted earlier that the issue for Mista is he's got a full melee comp. So unless he full commits to a dive, he never kills these scholars. He has no way of reaching them from afar.
Mista's going heavy on the horseman department, by the way, up to 14. Essentially 4 horsemen from him. He's got some spearmen left over as well, but most of his army right now is horsemen. And keep in mind, Beasty went for an archer range. Oh, Beasty actually not queuing up the other upgrades for the time being. I think that's just the fact that he has a second blacksmith somewhere, though I don't think it was a mistake. So it was more about optimization.
He's just flexing on certain other players that he doesn't need to press all the buttons now because he remembers them later. There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's going to spread them out.
But Mista's going castle. This is where it gets interesting. Like, the thing is that usually Delhi beat you to castle age if they have the sacred sites, but they don't have it right now because it was delayed, and now the horsemen are coming in from 2 directions. You can't take this,
Yeah,
though.
but he's created trick points. Yeah, you can't fight him here. You'll throw away your army, and then he'll rush towards your base. So instead, you just want to keep him controlled in the midfield. Make it feel like Beasty's winning.
Yeah.
Don't let him know what you're doing back at
And
home.
show your army. That's the other thing. Like, show that you're making army, because if you are not showing your army, it's a sign for the enemy. Oh, that's ugly. That was a Kurotai. That was a Kurotai. I saw it. I saw it. You can't hide it, Mista. That was a Kurotai that got cancelled.
Whoopsie. Slightly going to delay his timing, and that cost him a few extra troops. Like, even if he got all the horsemen out, remember, they would have all been heavily damaged. The good news for Mista is he wants to transition away from this. Lancers is a clear choice. Issue is Beasty's not far behind him. Look at the resources now for the Delhi. They're catching up fast, and also, at the start of this tech up, you're not going to be competing on the sacred site. So that's going to be 450 gold per minute extra for Beasty that will allow him to actually get his initial lancers or whatever gold expensive unit he wants to go for when he reaches castle.
Speaking of gold expensive units here, elephants is normally your go-to option, but when you see Mista being so heavy on the cavalry, you do have to evaluate other options, because the thing is, and this is something we've talked about a lot before, we have seen how much players can struggle catching up to elephants with the spearman. But cavalry is a completely different story, and in fact, what we came down to as a conclusion is that if you go heavy on the cavalry, it's going to be much more difficult for those elephants to be successful, because you can easily achieve wraparounds and surrounds.
Yeah, it's actually interesting to think about like the counters. Like, I think someone tried to run the maths that, like, in a vacuum, horsemen
Mangudai
should be more cost efficient than spears. But
I see Mangudai
coming out.
Whoa!
Now, calm down, because this is in theory good against the Delhi. But the reason it's good is because the Delhi usually forget one important tool they have in their arsenal, and that's force march. This isn't going to be a wash. It's going to sound weird as I say it, but like technically Delhi players can go spearmen and counter out Mangudai.
But they have foot archers, so like those Mangudai can never engage directly. This has to be like pure raiding force. Like, that's exactly it. And it makes some sense if you think about it. You don't want to engage the Delhi directly. You are afraid of the elephants. Instead, you want to raid, or even better, have a meat shield in front, the horsemen, and then have the Mangudai just non-stop shooting. And they are really efficient doing this.
And if he starts to network the Yam out into the midfield, that's when it gets problematic for Beasty. Now, one thing to keep in mind is Beasty could count this out by going for tower elephants in theory. The issue in practice is like, yes, if Mangudai and elephants show up in equal value to a fight, elephant wins because it has so much range.
Easily.
But
And like,
in what world does a Mangudai say, I'm going to take that fight? They just walk around you because you're a fat, slow-moving elephant.
the concern is that that essentially implies that you have to raid, and Mangudai, they do struggle when it comes to raiding, and there is like multiple defensive towers. That's the concern that you have here. It's gonna come down to how well Mist is able to keep these guys alive, though, because these guys are super fragile. They are the direct opposite of the elephants. Really useful units with high mobility, high damage output, but boy oh boy are they fragile. And look at Beasties once again here to yoink relics.
He's like, where's it at? I know it's back here somewhere. It's not going to be your insta-4 relic grab, but considering the way that Beasty began this game, the fact that he's able to start yoinking him up this quick is still impressive. And another thing to consider the Mangudai, I actually prefer Mangudai to be used only for midfield until the Khan's alive. When the Khan's alive, you can actually attempt dives into the enemy base because you have the maneuver arrow to get you out of a jam. If you don't have that variable play, it's very easy to get pinched on a unit that is basically a
Oh, the villagers! Oh, they were found! Mista went out for a hunt. The Scholar is yoinking the relic. You could even get a
Yeah,
conversion
he's
over
going
here
back the
as...
other way. No,
Could he
he doesn't
try?
want to risk it. He wants it out. I think he
Yeah.
saw the prayer tent, so he doesn't want to give it over. And look, the
Core
timing
really
as
wants
well.
it.
Bye!
Core really wants to see that conversion, but that's not gonna be a thing. And now you actually could be in trouble over here if you're Beasty with that army at least, because it's gonna get pursued down. At least Beasty is going to secure the 4th relic for himself this way, so nothing to be ashamed of.
It's
And
wasting time. It's wasting, like, you don't
oh,
have
the
Yam is
shaman!
problem. Nah, it's not worth it. Like, the problem you have is this isn't old Mongols where you're like, I'm just gonna dip near my deer stone, I'll be right back. And I will be right back because Yam. You have to maintain it, and it means that Beasty can actually just do this to him unless Mista starts setting up outposts across the map. The concern, though, is at the end of the day, Beasty is Delhi, and they still build a lot of crap early on. So if you move builders out, they're likely to get intercepted left, right, and center.
And your base is way less condensed over here when you are Mista, because as Kur pointed out to us, there is exactly one pasture working right now for Mista. He has turned all of his resources into army. He doesn't have pastures. He's working with berries, he's working with hunt, leaving him a lot more exposed than ordinary Mongol players.
You should be able to play this way, considering that your opponent's going elephants. Like, the horsemen are actually getting a lot of value. I'll give Beasty credit. But the horsemen are a finite resource. He doesn't want to keep investing in them. He just wants to waste time
Mangudai,
away
though.
from Mista.
That's a lot of Mangudai, and they do have the +2 attack as well. The Mongol unique upgrade for Mangudai, and they might actually chase down all the horsemen. Question becomes, how do you deal with the elephants?
Yes, the elephants that you probably have to fight with the way that Beasty's playing this. He's playing for Sacred Sites now, and remember, he went for Compound Defender. Look at his stone. He can drop a keep. Easy peasy on the loose, and then just actually condense forces on the western side. So then he'll have static defense to defend east, and then his full army
I think he's
defend the
going
west.
on the base of Mista, though, because
Oh my
he
God,
saw
is.
the Mangudai. He saw the Mangudai, and the thing is, you can't take direct engagements, and Beasty knows that. So he can force an engagement. If you are the one with the slow army, you gotta be the guy forcing the engagements, because otherwise, you will be run around. At this point, Mista doesn't want to fight. But if you force the engagements yourself, then you will force Mista to engage this. Keep going up.
He can see it,
He
but he
sees
can't
it.
go for it.
Yeah, he can't stop
go
it.
for it.
He sees the elephants
he's
like, oh shoot, what now?
It's crazy because you think about the Mangudai, they've got crap range, they've got crap armor. Elephants have better range and much better armor. They have usually about 5 ranged armor at this point in the game. So that's halving the Mangudai's damage output. And that's why he just can't take this fight. And that's why Beasty, he's going to crawl in now. If this keep fails, if the next one fails, he'll just go back and mine some extra stone and come back later.
I wonder if the Mangudai are here to snipe these scholars. That could be the only idea I can think about. But it's so difficult to focus them down.
Damage coming in. He's trying to strike at them fast here, but Beasty holding firm. The villagers are building up, barely targeted at the moment. And now they pick up
There
the
could be a Wololo.
Beasty says, get the hell off.
You gotta pull
Zion."
back.
Raid round. Horseman, too
Oh,
late.
he's not gonna get it. He's getting it.
Mistake been made.
Let's
Mista
go.
needs to run. He needs to run and hide.
Oh my goodness, complete domination. I don't want to be the guy that says that, but we kinda expected that to happen. Beasty cruises on to game number 3 victory here with the elephants. Oh man.
Never, ever tried to stop a Delhi Wololo like that. The healing is ridiculous. Oh my God.
Even without that, it would have been a domination. And honestly, I would love to ask Mista what the concept of the Mangudai were. Like, maybe he didn't think that Beasty has that many elephants, or maybe he just thought he's going to swoop in for a raid, but this is the problem. This is why Delhi is so oppressive as a civilization. They can force an engagement really fast. They can just get to Castle Age with a blazing fast time. Compound of the Defender allows them to drop a keep really soon. They just march right next to your base, drop the keep, and if you don't fight them right here, right now, you will lose the game because they will have a crazy forward that's impossible to break.